discussion.
Okay, just simple. It's just a misspelling. TERC committee is TERC, isn't it?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, you can make a motion to approve them as amended. Is that okay, Mr. Truslin, as amended?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Aye. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Before we move forward, if we can just make sure that all of your microphones are turned on. And if you don't mind speaking directly into the microphone, it helps with the live streaming audio and the recording audio. So, thank you.
Okay, the next order of business is the review of the financial statements by Debbie Suggs.
I'm going to start with the preliminary and unaudited June 30 statement. Y'all have seen these already, but we've had some additional entries that I wanted to go over with you. Some information, for instance, the biggest piece is the fourth quarter payment from the state had not been received in that last time. So it's now reflected. You can see it on the balance sheet year over year. Total assets of 2.167 million. Some accounts payables, and then a fund balance of 2.67 compared to the prior year's ending fund balance and liabilities of 1.961. With increased assets and fund balance year over year. Next page is the revenue page. You can see the June quarterly payment. $951,000. That's the tourism related portion only. You go to this schedule. It shows you all pieces of the payment received from the state. So the June 21 check received was $7,541. Is it what?
May I-
650,000.
Are you on the second page?
This, it's a single sheet. We're just drilling down into revenue.
Okay, I got
So the general fund portion of the fourth quarter payment is $50,000, $651,000 to the tourism related bucket, which is what this committee has purview over, and $300,000 to the CVB. So that's sitting in accounts payable at year end. And you can see here the history. So our FY21 total payments from the state were 45% higher than last year. But of course, last year was significantly impacted by COVID-related downturns. But we have also seen a significant increase in accommodations year over year in the last part of this year. We don't know how sustainable those are. We suspect that there was a little bit of pent-up demand for a beach vacation. We don't know that that's something that will sustain over time. We'll just have to wait and see.
Okay.
Okay, and then real quick, I wanted to just touch on, y'all recall, last time we met, there were some overages in the expense side, budget overages. We typically ask the committee to approve via a vote. Last time we didn't have them on the agenda, so we deferred, and now they're on the agenda, so we'd like to run through those. Doug, you look confused. Is there something?
Well, there's a lot of papers and I'm not real familiar with budgets, so I'm trying to see where this is.
Okay, so
Which
we're
paper?
on the FY21 statements. These are the ones that have red
Okay, now we're here.
We're here. And we talked about the balance sheet and we've talked about revenues. And now we're into expenditures. And most, you with me?
Yeah, but are we on July 31 or? Are we
No,
back
we're on
to
to June
June?
3rd.
Okay.
This year. Again, last time we met, we reviewed these statements,
Right.
but some additional information we've now got that they're more complete. And in fact, I think that there will not be any more entries in June. The auditors are actually working upstairs as we speak. So soon we'll have final numbers, and I don't think they're going to change in the state ATAX fund from what you're seeing here.
Maybe I don't. Missing something. I printed all the copies.
And there were some sitting right here on the desk.
That's what I thought. I picked up.
One more copies here, Debbie.
But we have another one. Okay. That was. Okay, thanks.
And so go to page 3 of that packet.
I'll need another copy.
No, here's.
You got it?
This will work.
Okay.
These are 12-month numbers that we're looking at now for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2021. Okay. So public restroom operations. I think there were some additional expenses for utilities and such, but they're well within the budget for that operation. The second item is Beach Barrel and Front Beach Business District trash pickup. With all 12 months in expense, we exceeded the budget by $5,326. I reviewed the invoices, and we were billed by the day that this is the business that operates the contraption that goes up and down the beach and empties beach barrels. And they also do the street side of the beach accesses and the barrels in the front beach area. We pay them $514 a day for every time they do a run on the beach. And in the early parts of the year, they were like July and August of 20. They were running every day. And then in the winter, they run only a couple of days a week. And I checked with Donnie to make sure, and Donnie directs how often they do a pass. Normally, they're supposed to have 2 days off a week. Their contract is based on them being off 2 days a week. But if for some reason Donnie feels like the level of trash on the beach warrants an extra pass, he will call them and they will do that. So that's how we got over budget for the year. But it is something that a city employee directs. They're not on their own deciding.
Do you need a motion on them individually?
Got
or-
No, we have them listed under new business. All
So you
of
do all
those
of
that
them
have an
together?
overage, so you can just take it as a one motion. Douglas, do you
So
have-
on, yeah, I did that. Yes, ma'am. I did have a question. I just want to make sure this is something that the city administration approves of. Council is okay with it. Ways and Means, Public Works approves these things, and we're here to just say grace over it, basically.
You're here to approve it.
Approve
City
it.
council doesn't authorize every time we ask the contractor to
Okay.
do extra sweeps of the beach.
Okay.
We take that on a day-by-day basis based on need. But I do have the authority to approve that.
I don't have any, I don't have any concerns about it. I just want to make sure that we had checked off all the boxes.
Mhm.
And what I'm hearing is, I expected it, so it's a friendly question, but we got all the boxes checked and we're just kind of looking over it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you need
Okay.
a motion or do you want to wait?
Yeah, well, we're gonna go through each one, that there's an overage. We already discussed it last month, but since you all voting on it today, Debbie will go through and identify all of those that have an overage with the, for the full FY21 budget. If that's okay. All right?
Okay, next, I don't believe there's anything significant on the first page that's due from last time, so I'm just gonna move on unless somebody has some questions.
Now, let me just say, we're kind of tight for time today.
Mhm.
We have a conflict with this room, so I would like to keep things.
All right. No problem. So next page, Charleston CVB, the tourism promotion transfer. You can see that we're over budget there, but that's just because this is a direct calculation based on revenue. So when revenues go over, we're going to go over on this item. Transfers to the marina for 75% of bond debt service. That line item is over by 33,000. The budget was based on a guess of what we were going to borrow and what the interest rate would be. The guess was 3.2 million at 4%. And what we actually ended up with was a $4.3 million bond issue at 2.16%. So we borrowed more money, but got a better interest rate. And the differential here, the 33,000, is just the difference in 75% of what we estimated in the budget versus what we actually ended up with in the bond. Going forward, we will budget based on the amortization schedule and there won't be any difference. Moving on, music in the park. This was an expenditure associated with an event at the rec center that has historically been funded with state ATAX money. In FY21, we just didn't get it in the budget. I think that was an oversight on my part. But so we would ask the committee to entertain funding it again. And the Easter egg hunt came way under budget. So you could really look at it as just a shifting in funds from the Easter egg hunt event to the music in the park event, both of which are held at the rec center. And then the only other thing we need to talk about is the $1 difference overage on the fire department debt service on the ladder truck. That's just a rounding error or rounding difference.
I'm curious about, I know we're, I want to be mindful of time, but I have a question, or I can see this later. I was just, it looks like 75% of the cost of the marina basically is allocated to tourists, and we use our ATAX money for the bond service, about 75%. Is that right?
That's what the budget provides for, yes.
All right, I think I understand. I'll follow up later. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just trying to get my mind around it as a new member.
Do I have a, excuse me, do I have a motion to approve the overages?
I make a motion, we approve as read.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? No.
All right. The other set of financials I included was the July 31st. If y'all want to just review these and contact me if you have questions, there's really not a whole lot in July. It's the first month of the new fiscal year. No revenues except a little bit of interest and very little spending. So
I just have a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
In light of going over on the trash pickup last year, Does it make sense to, well, we're using the same budget last year as we're budgeting this year, and last year we went over.
Mhm.
So is the budget still a good number, or should that be reconsidered since we went over that number this past year?
We'll just have to wait and see. I can just eyeball it and see for that the 12,000 for the first month. In FY20, that was a higher monthly number. So I think we'll probably be okay or pretty close.
Then the only other thing I don't know that we discussed it before. If we did, I don't remember. But on the last page, the marina public dock of 150,000
Mhm.
and the marina maintenance of 50,000. Have we discussed that? Because I don't remember talking about that.
So those are part of the budget.
What are they? I mean, I can read what they are, but what, any more of a description?
Well, city council provided in the budget for some significant improvements to the water sports dock to upfit it as a public dock. And the 150 is an estimate of what that might cost. It's a provision, a placeholder.
Right.
And the $50,000 maintenance is again the same thing. There's no specific item of maintenance that we know we'll have to take care of this year, but as an overall citywide effort to anticipate and provide for maintenance of city facilities better than we have in the past. There are several areas in the budget where buckets of maintenance money exist.
Okay.
And for the marina, it's just categorized in same.
Okay. I just wanted to talk about it.
I just want to add one more thing, Chair, if you don't mind. There are areas of the marina side that are common areas that are not encumbered by any lease. And those areas, the city is responsible for that maintenance. So just the driveways in and out, some of the roads, the egress and egress, ingress and egress. So that's why we budget some maintenance funds for those areas. Everything else would be covered in under an existing lease. Excuse me.
Anything else?
That's all I have, unless there are any questions.
Let's move along then with the agenda. Under item 4 for old business, we'd like to invite Helen Hall from Charleston Area Visitors Bureau to give us a presentation.
And she's joined by Dan Batista.
And Dan, I didn't realize Dan was speaking, so I apologize.
And Dan's gonna be first.
Okay.
So we're having a team set of technology clicker problems. We have some assistance. And we have a plan.
Before we begin, I have a question. So the presentation is being done, you represent Charleston Visitors Bureau, you're an employee of them?
No. So I am a board member of Explore Charleston. I am also part of the ownership group of Wild Dunes Resort.
Okay, so the presentation today is by CVB and you are participating as a board member of CVB.
Correct, and also as an owner of the resort assets at Wild Dunes.
Are the other resort owners, are the other short-term rental owners, were they given the opportunity to participate? I own a short-term rental out here.
Again, I'm representing the Wild Dunes Resort Ownership Group.
And I guess my question is to Helen, then, not to you. Were the other people of the island, 2/3 of the island, invited to be involved in the presentation today?
We invited them to send some letters of support, which I have with me that I'll share with you from the large realty companies that I'll share those with you.
And what about the individual owners such as myself that own short-term rentals?
Unless you're a member of ours, we wouldn't have a way to be with you.
But I am a resident of Isle of Palms and I do pay this money. And I don't believe I got representation today in your presentation. I'm happy that you're presenting and I appreciate that. I just wish that the rest of us owners who are part of this money also could have been represented. Because even though we don't pay an additional membership fee to join CVB, we do pay that 600,000 and collect that accommodations fee as well.
You absolutely do. I hope that when we finish talking, you'll see that the value that you invest through what your visitors pay has been well spent.
I certainly hope that's the outcome. I like representation too, but thank you. I just want to say that for any future CBB presentations, I would like to have representation as well. Thank you. Go ahead.
Stan, if you don't mind, maybe shifting the microphone towards you.
Is that better?
No, straight at.
Straight at you. There you go.
There you go.
How's that?
There, much better.
Much
Thank
better?
you.
Well, first off, I think I want to thank this entire committee because I know this is public service and obviously we're very appreciative of all that you do with respect to the city of Isle of Palms. And I think one of the things I do want to address, and can I call you Glenda or would you like to be Glenda, is that I feel as though maybe there's a misconnection here because I truly believe as a business owner and representation of one of the largest assets here on the island, I hope you understand that when I think about the Isle of Palms and I think about hospitality and accommodations and lodging, I do consider you part of our brethren in the sense that when we look at accommodations tax, obviously we're the largest contributor to all the accommodation tax that is representative here for the ATAX committee. But clearly, I see every individual owner, whether they are a restaurant owner or they own a rental property or they own a string of rental properties, or if they own another type of business on the island, I see us all as one group. Ultimately, the goal here is to create the greatest environment for residents and visitors to the Isle of Palms. So if you felt as though you weren't represented, I will leave you my cell phone number at the end of this, and I will make sure that we are in touch constantly so that we can have dialogue to make sure that our goals are always converging and which are best for the Isle of Palms.
Right. And for sake of time, I will make just a one-line response. My needs may not be the same as Lowe's Hotel. And I understand you saying that we all have a common interest, and I do understand that, but there are common interests of others as well. So,
Agreed.
thank you.
Well, first off, again, I want to thank everyone. There's been a lot of discussion about what it is that Explore Charleston does as a destination marketing organization for obviously the Isle of Palms and all the other municipalities that are part of this wonderful group that has been promoting Charleston for 40 plus years. I think it's important for us to highlight the history of the involvement of Explore Charleston with the Isle of Palms. And then also the question that I think was posed to both Helen and I most often was kind of, what have you done for us lately? To understand, what is it exactly that Explore Charleston does to benefit the Isle of Palms? So I think we definitely want to hit on those areas with respect to advertising, website, publications, social media. And then I do want to discuss a little bit about our involvement with respect to accommodations tax at Wild Dunes Resort, talk about all the wonderful media relations successes that we have seen through Explore Charleston, and then really go through a significant plan for 2021 to make sure that we are addressing them with respect to the Isle of Palms. And then I think it's important that we touch on group sales, which is something that I have heard. I've been out here for 16 years, and one of the things we know is that it's great to have visitors here on the island for the summer season, but what really drives additional revenue is getting visitors here during the off seasons. And so we want to touch on that a little bit. And then really talk about what our full commitment is at Explore Charleston to you. Obviously, not only just to this committee, but obviously we want to make sure that this committee is well armed to be able to field questions and make recommendations to City Council. So that's kind of an overview of what we would like to touch on. I think that if we look at this, ultimately, this is a great slide to show that over the course of the last 7 years, the overall funding of the accommodations taxes from 2014 at 3.5 million. Obviously, we had a little bit of a dip from 19 to 20, but they've grown significantly over the course of 7 years to now exceeding over $6 million. So I think that that in and of itself should be pretty clear evidence that the island is being promoted very well and is seeing success with accommodations taxes. This is just a little summary of Wild Dunes and our assets, just to give you an understanding of the magnitude of our participation. Obviously, the overall revenues that we generate with respect to accommodations is close to $30 million, it's $28.5 million. And the overall accommodations taxes, and I know we're all very well versed in the delineation between the state and the county and our ILP accommodations and the preservation fee, but overall, our contribution is roughly about $1.7 million to that budget. And then when you think about the overall spending with respect to tourism revenues and what's collected by visitors to the island, and I believe this is dating back to 20. It's hidden. I think it's 2019, but overall, of all the revenues that are collected, about 90% of that is utilized for the municipality to run business and be able to keep its operations going. And about 10% of that is towards advertising and promotion with respect to all the monies that are collected. Yep. And with that, I will turn it over to Helen Hill.
Well, thank you. And as Dan said, thanks to each one of you, because I know from my volunteer job at the airport, it's hard to have a volunteer job like this one. So thank you for your service. And we have had a really long history with the Isle of Palms. When accommodations tax came around, Carmen Bunch and I did the deal together over at the Seabiscuit in terms of where we were going to go for the future, talking about why beaches were such an important part of the destination sale of our community. One of the other things that I learned from your chairman, Ray, and he is absolutely right. He suggested to me when we met over at Dan's office that we need to do a better job, just like he did in the manufacturing world, of taking care of our client. And you are our client. And we have not done a good job since many of you were appointed, making sure that each one of you as the Accommodation Tax Advisory Committee knew intricately how you were involved and what we were doing to serve you. And I'm hopeful that we can change that. But most importantly, to let you know that over this last year and a half during COVID, we have stayed in very close contact with your members, those folks that not only Dan, but our members that are out here. So you can flip through these if you would. Just kind of wanted you to see, well, those were the board members who were involved, but just some of our members on the Isle of Palms and how long they've been members. I mean, we're really proud of that there's they've got like 202 years of membership. And then this is the big number for you. And I know, Doug, you love some numbers. The membership, just from membership out here, is $166,000. So the private sector believes in what we're doing. So what I'd like to do is I promised Ray that we would move through this quickly. And I know that y'all have expressed, and I appreciate that, the success that you've seen and the work that you've seen from us. And I appreciate that. So I'll move through it really quickly. It's really important. We talk about beaches and we talk about islands. One of the things that we found in all of our research is how key it is to talk about not just beach, but talk about the island. Because you all know there's so much more to do than just sit on the beach, right? There's so much more. And we've been able to do that very successfully. We've done advertising not only with print, we do it, through digital as we do it, and we answer those with our publications. And one of the things I'd like to show you, if we can switch on, I'm sorry, I need a clicker. I can't, it's hard to talk without a clicker. I know. So if you just keep rolling a little bit. Publication. So this advertising schedule just gives you a little snapshot of what we'll be doing for 2022, which is just what we have so far. And it's a very robust schedule that I'm hopeful will continue to produce great results. One of the things that we have learned, and I don't know which one of you said it, that pent up demand for travel, right? We certainly have seen a spike in that pent up demand for travel. what we want to make sure of is that when that has started to wane off, Lord, please save us from Delta variant, that we will be there asking folks to come and visit us and to enjoy our community. The key to this is we don't have to work really hard to sell in the summer, but we need to work really hard on the shoulder seasons and in the winter. So I'd like just go ahead and click through some of the fun advertising. This is one of my new favorite ones. You see the right there, it's Sea Frosty built out of sand. One of our highest rating ads in terms of response. And it's we're really excited. We ran this last year and we tend to run it again. Dan, I think we actually have a photo shoot coming up with you to actually build that. Because again, showing that at the holiday time, it's very comfortable to be right there on the beach. So let's just roll through these if you would. And you can see the kind of visuals that we're using to talk about our beaches. Back to island. Now, those are some of the digital kinds of placement that we're doing, and great response to all the television advertising. One of the blessings that we had in our state is that we got funding from the state of South Carolina to make some significant investments in advertising. Back when we all didn't know we were going to have any money, Desiree, you remember this well, we weren't sure local governments were going to have any funding. So the state made a significant investment and we got a little bit of a head start on the rest of the country. And I think that has certainly played out well for us. So why don't you just keep rolling through that? So that's the amount that we're going to spend specifically on beach advertising coming up in the next 2 quarters to really hit that shoulder season. And this is an interesting one. One of the things that I've been talking to my buddy John Moy about is metrics. And it's interesting that we, and Dan, you probably can chime in on this, is that there are 2 ways that people are getting to your accommodations here on Isle of Palms. One is through the regular Explore Charleston site, and one through the beaches site. And so I just look at those unique views that they've gotten just from the Explore Charleston website. So you can keep on clicking on through and looking at some of the beautiful visuals. And this is a really important one to back to those other folks, Glenda, that are not represented just through Wild Dunes, but some of the other realty companies, people that are renting things. You can see the kind of referrals they're getting from the Charleston advertising. So you can move on through all those. And as we get to the publications, this is a really interesting point. I thought, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I thought that things were going to change. When people could go online and see everything, I thought our publications, like something people could hold in their hand, would go away. And it's interesting that it has not. People are still interested in being able to hold a guide, particularly important, not only with the visitor's guide, but our new wedding guide. It's interesting that a bride still wants to have that visual, almost like a magazine. And we've certainly played to those strengths. So you can click on through there's our beautiful new wedding guide. Keep on switching through those. And then a little bit about, Dan, I don't want to jump over you. Hold on, I'm not having the clickers messing me. Okay, so some of the things that we do best is media relations. And that's earned media, right? It's us telling the very special story that you can only have when you're in our community. Whether that's a quiet day that you had, in a quiet walk on a winter beach. Those are the kind of stories that you start to see. And we've had a lot of success with that. We have a lot of advertorial that way. So if you want to click through, because this is a lot, there's a lot of, if you think about the blog post, if you think about those things that we're doing, those are Instagram stories that specifically focused on specifically the Isle of Palms or Wild Dunes or a combination of all of them, even something like the grill. So just you can run through those because I want to get to the group business and keep Ray's time. And so, we've got some really good partners to advertise, got good rates with them. We get preferential treatment while your money is well invested. So if you keep going through those, so I'm gonna let you click through these really fast because I know they can't read them, but I wanted them to see all the editorial mentions specifically for the Isle of Palms and what was said about us. So obviously us putting your best foot forward, face forward, talking about what makes Isle of Palms specifically exciting for someone to choose. And that's the value of just that earned media. Isn't that scary? That's just the value of earned media. That's a lot. So Now I'd like to move to something really critically important, especially to our future, and it's group sales.
Thank you. And I think I alluded to this earlier. When we first purchased the resort assets at Wild Dunes in 1990, we basically, it was a summer resort. It was there for June, July, and August. And ultimately, we struggled with understanding, how can we create more visitors and have a more streamlined approach to bringing higher spending visitors to the Isle of Palms. And so we set about a program and a plan to look towards group sales. And obviously group visitors are fantastic. They usually fly into the airport and get shuttled to the resort. They eliminate traffic, create less of a parking issue. So group sales is very good. And we were very fortunate to be able to work through the process of expanding into the shoulder seasons, which I would say would be the spring and the fall. And then now we're starting to see with the additional investment that we're finding folks are interested in coming to the Isle of Palms in December, January, and February. And I will say, I love the Isle of Palms, December, January, and February. I'm glad that other folks now across the country are seeing just how wonderful it is to be here at the Isle of Palms in those winter months. So that's an area where we get tremendous support from the Charleston Visitors and Convention Bureau. They have a full staff that is dedicated to fulfilling the inquiries regarding bringing folks to the Isle of Palms. And I think one thing I do want to stress before I turn it back over to Helen is the misnomer about where our competition is. I think that a lot of times people think that we're competing with our other resort and hotel operators in the Charleston area, and that's not true. Our competition comes from outside of the Charleston region. That's why destination marketing organizations focusing on Charleston. I know sometimes it's hard for this group to segregate between, are you promoting Charleston or are you promoting Isle of Palms? And I am here to say that today, I strongly believe that when you're promoting Charleston, the way that Explore Charleston does it, you're also promoting the Isle of Palms because it is a destination. We are more concerned about, are folks going to migrate from this area and go to Hilton Head? Are they going to go to Myrtle Beach? Are they going to go to Amelia Island? Are they going to go to Georgia's Golden Isle? So ultimately, the overall promotion of Charleston as a region has proved extremely successful for the Isle of Palms. So that's a little bit about group sales, a little bit about our competition.
Well, and Glenn, you brought up a good point earlier as it relates to if Wild Dunes is full with group business, that means that your accommodation has a even higher probability of being rented, because what we want is the mix of visitors, right? We want to have group business and we want to have leisure business. And, Wild Dunes is a pretty big person to compete against in terms of leisure business, right? So the goal is to be filled as much as possible, and it's great for the resort, with group business. And I want to quickly show you, again, being mindful of your time, how we do that. We have 12 salespeople that are working exclusively on meeting and convention groups. And we do it through trade shows, for promotions, site visits. And you can just run through there. So I want you to see all of the trade shows that we do for the association market. And then if you just keep going, there's so many of them. The corporate trade shows, corporate business is back, ladies and gentlemen. That's the best thing I can tell you. Corporate business is back. The government groups, specifically incentive is really important to Wild Dunes specifically. And then we even get some great international visitors. So group business, critically important. And then this part of our leisure travelers, the one group of people that are back are travel agents. They're now called travel advisors. But they are critically important now in terms of booking. And that's something that I wouldn't have been able to stand here and tell you that 2 years ago. It's really changed. And those people are back. And we are in the midst of a great relationship with all the major groups of where those folks join together. So the other piece, there's the group tour ones. And the all important weddings. Weddings are back, ladies and gentlemen. That's the great thing. Wasn't that the one piece of group business we never lost? So that we used to laugh and say that a lot of people didn't even want wedding business. And now wedding business is one of the things that helped us, through the pandemic, because as Dr. Thornley says, whether it's your first, second, or third marriage, right? Everybody love does not take sick. So all good for us. So if you go through, the other thing that's really important as it relates to group business and to our leisure business is what we're doing in terms of air service development. One of the things that we're really pleased with is the amount of air service that we've been able to secure for our community. And ladies and gentlemen, tourism is driving the boat as it relates to creating those direct fly cities. And it's really because we as a destination marketing organization can advertise in those markets to encourage visitors to come to the Isle of Palms. And we've been really successful in that. Who would have believed that during COVID, we would have gotten our first direct flight to California? Thank you, JetBlue. So we've had some success there. And then that's how much money we'll be spending specifically in the group market this year. So if you just want to move on to some of the other things about why partnerships matter. And, you know, we're not just a partner with you when times are good, but we're also a partner with you all the time. And we have been since 1988. So if you look back, if you look at the kind of things we're doing, and we enjoyed that, I'm excited about our finally have our clean campaign, so excited. And then if you keep going, one of the things that's really important, and Dan, you might want to chime in here, is what happens when there is a crisis.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that it is important. Obviously, we all want to revel in success and see the island do extremely well and the region do well. But unfortunately, we do sometimes face issues with respect to, I don't even like to say the word out loud, but you know, the one with the H. But also it has sometimes devastated our beaches. And ultimately, Explore Charleston has been there for us, whether it be connections to Columbia to make sure that we've got the ability to work with legislators and find the necessary financing and funding to deal with our crisis management, whether it be devastation from the remnants of storms or whether it be beach renourishment. And that's been a very important role that Explore Charleston has been able to play as an advocate for the region. So I think that's important to understand how important it is to have them there, not only just for the good times, but for when we need support in hard times as well.
And just for you to know, we have a special fund that we don't touch, and it's $150,000 that sits there. It's specifically done for hurricanes. And fortunately, because of the state money, we didn't need to use it for COVID, but it sits on the shelf along with our post-hurricane plan, because you all know that in our 300-year history, we've only had 5 hurricanes actually hit, right? And so most of it is we losing reservations to people who don't have good information. So that campaign is sitting on the shelf, and we activate it the minute we know the coast is clear so that we can bring visitors back, and they know that it's safe to do that. So crisis management is really critically important. If you just want to go on through we spend a lot of time working on getting the right visitor here. More visitors is not the answer. It's higher yield from each visitor. And really the kind of what we do in terms of where we want to be for our future. And we're excited about where we're going. And fulfillment. I mean, one of the things that we're doing is obviously answering a lot of fulfillment. And Glenda, you and I talked about Miss Kitty. What a blessing she is. I'm so glad she was your friend, but she was one of the people on the phone all the time answering the questions. And it's critical that we have, 5 operators that's what they do. They're answering questions all the time about what's happening in our community. And obviously, Miss Kitty was one of the best. And you probably already knew that. And if you want to just move on through, I just want to close by saying that one of the things that you all, particularly Ray and Doug, have challenged us is to think differently about how we're accountable to you. One of the things that these 52 full-time people that working to sell Charleston region every day is we've always thought about it in terms of the number of units that have to be sold, right? It's a lot more effort to fill the rooms at the Isle of Palms than it is to a smaller government, right? You have a lot more accommodations to fill. So you've challenged us to think about it differently. One of the things that I don't want to have happen is I don't want our coalition of our 10 municipal governments to fall apart. One of the reasons that we have been able to be successful is we've all done it together. And when you've used a little bit of your money, the way the accommodations tax was originally designed, 30% to advertising and marketing to bring that return. Again, that's just 10% of your total amount of money you collect from visitors. It's so important that we have that coalition. So it's not just about the money. It's about the partnership. It's about the partnership of us working together. And Dan and I would respectfully ask for your continued support and know that you have my full commitment that each one of you will be a valued client and we will listen to you very carefully since we have certainly failed you there. You want to say anything else, Dan, before we finish?
No, I think that was well said.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Dan. Time check. We've got till what, a little after 12, is it?
We have until 12:30.
12:30?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
And we can also share the presentation with all of the members who received it this morning so that you spend some time going through that, all of the slides. And also we'll share copies of the letters of support that they have brought with. Yeah.
So we're going to have a copy of what was presented.
Yes, sir.
And is it-
electronic?
Yes, sir.
And is it going to be made a part of the record? But that was one of my frustrations is past presentations. I just couldn't find many of them or the results. I was trying to look through the past minutes of the ATAX committee to see exactly, and council meetings to try to see exactly what was presented and what the facts and figures were. So
Yes, with the new changes to the website, we have a better capability to upload all of those documents to the website and maintain a good record.
are the old ones available? Past
Um,
presentations?
We would have to go back to the minute books and for a specific date, but we can certainly
Okay.
check.
All right. Reason I was asking is I was having trouble finding them and talked to Ms. Suggs and was telling her that I could only, when I was looking, I could only find, like, I want to say 1998 to 2000. And that's been part of my problem moving forward is I needed to have some facts and figures. Didn't feel like I had them. So if they're available, I'd love to see them. I appreciate your help.
Okay, are there any questions for Dan or Helen?
Thank you for the presentation.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead with my presentation. I'd like to present a case to City Council to consider establishing the city's own nonprofit direct marketing organization for a portion of the 30% accommodation tax revenue, specifically targeted for tourism promotion as an alternative to the current approach of paying all of the money to Charleston Area Visitors Bureau. I ask committee members to consider both what you've heard from CVB today, as well as what I'm going to tell you. The plan here is that you listen to Helen and Dan, and you'll listen to me, I suppose, and then we'll take some time. We'll take about 4 weeks, and we'll meet again on September 8th. That's the plan. And at that time, we'd like to have a motion, and we would have a vote on what we present to City Council concerning our advisory role. The current approach is we spend the 30%, or we pay the 30% to Charleston Area Visitors Bureau. No one has ever really been able to reconstruct how we got there or when we got there, but Helen maybe threw out a little nugget there that it might have been something done with Carmen Bunch and Helen years ago at the restaurant around the corner. By way of perspective, it's hard to get a lot of good records going back, but if I go back 10 years, it looks like Isle of Palms was paying Charleston Area Visitors Bureau about $250,000 a year through this 30% of the 2%. And per the preliminary financials that Debbie sent out for July 31, it looks like in fiscal 21 ending June 30th, Isle of Palms will have paid CVB $733,000. So really over the course of 10 years, it's tripled in terms of the growth of that 30%. Now, on the one hand, you could say, well, that's bona fide success. And I think that's an argument that can be easily made. But I also say, is there an alternative way to maximize that money spent? I'm going to try to go quickly over what it would entail for the city to create a nonprofit DMO. The process will be the city attorney will have to file applications with South Carolina Secretary of State to establish what I think would be a 501c6. That shouldn't be really hard to do. However, that's where the work starts. The first step after that is done, or maybe even prior to that step is executed. I guess I should say everything I'm saying here is my opinion. I've got a lot of facts, but I also have to tell you what I'm thinking. So my thinking on this is City Council has to create a vision for what this nonprofit DMO would be about and what its objectives are, and communicate that to all the stakeholders. Because I think that's real important. That I've spoken to a number of people concerning this process, and one recommendation, and I'll talk about Folly in a little while, but one recommendation, well, I asked the people who organized their DMO in Folly Beach, and I said, what would you do if you had to do it over again? What would you do differently? And the first and only thing they said that they would do differently is they would have communicated the vision better to the community than what they did. So I think that needs to be taken seriously, and I think City Council has to step up with that vision. Okay, so let's say, for instance, that City Council wants to go forward with this. One of the first steps would be creating a committee. It wouldn't be the ATAX committee. It would be a separate committee that's managing the nonprofit DMO. It would probably have 7 members, and it would be very similar to the ATAX committee. It would be cross-functional. It would have members from lodging, members from hospitality, a member from a cultural perspective, and probably a couple of at-large members. That committee would submit a budget annually to City Council for what their intentions of spending, and that would also go through the screen of the Ways and Means Committee. In terms of financial point of view, the money that the city would fund the nonprofit would be managed by the city administration, and it would have a separate banking account, and in all expenditures to support the activities of the nonprofit would be approved and dispersed by the city. State law for this activity states that to manage and direct the expenditure of tourism promotion funds, the city shall select one or more organizations such as Visitors Bureau or Tourism Commission. So my point is, you can have more than one entity that is promoting tourism promotion, let's say. The Tourism Commission must demonstrate to the city that it can develop an effective tourism promotion program. That's what the law says. But in discussions with Tourism Expenditure Review Committee in Columbia, I'm of the opinion that that's a relationship between the city and the committee as opposed to any state approval. I could be wrong on that, but that's what I understand. So what I'm getting at with that is to say the committee would have to present a case to say that they are capable and competent to do this tourism promotion. And that approval of that presentation would be between the city and the committee. And one of the things that at least I learned was I kind of thought the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee, or TURC, would be the entity that would approve the capability of a DMO to do the job. And we've been told that's not the case. So that, to be honest, that was a bit of a surprise to me. So as I went down this path, I tried to find out as much research as I could. And one of the communities I contacted and spent time with was Folly Beach. Folly Beach created their own DMO back, I think, in 2005, and they went on that path for probably something in the neighborhood of 10 years. Up until recently, I'm saying 2015, they contracted with an advertising agency to manage their tourism promotion funds. In researching this whole activity, I spoke with Charlie McManus, who was CFO of Folly. He was the driving force at Folly to leading their efforts towards their own DMO. We also met with the current city administrator at Folly Beach and the director of finance to understand how this committee works and how they relate to the city. I also met with the vice president of the advertising agency that the Folly Beach Tourism and Visitors Promotion Committee contracts with and has been doing work with since 2015. And lastly, as I mentioned, we had conversations with the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee in Columbia with their staff support manager. So one of the objectives of the Folly Committee was to create a new tourism promotion website. And I encourage everyone to visit that website. It's www.visitfolly.com. And I encourage you to do that before the September meeting. Because it's good to get a feel for what they are accomplishing, what they're doing, and the feel of what they're doing. Their website advertises all hotels, all inns, all vacation rentals on Folly, everyone. To address Glenda's point, it includes everyone. It also advertises for all of their restaurants, every restaurant, and every restaurant has a link. So you click the link, you get their menu, you do all that. And it also, amongst other things, it has a tab for things to do, which generates business activity for service providers, whether it's a fishing trip or getting a haircut. One thing to note on this is no businesses at Folly pay for that exposure, pay for that listing on the website or the links or any of that sort. It's all free to everybody who has a lodging, a restaurant, a business in Folly Beach. I saw in the presentation from Helen and Dan that there are a fair amount of businesses, primarily looked like rental companies that have membership in CVB. But I would contend that really on balance, the majority of the businesses in Isle of Palms don't benefit from direct advertising from CVB. CVB, they didn't say it today, but they've said it before, rising tide lifts all boats. And I think that's true. But I also think that targeted advertising, that a nonprofit DMO city website could benefit a lot of other IOP businesses. So I encourage committee members to visit the CVB website, charlestoncvb.com, and try to navigate your way through and see how Isle of Palms is treated. And I'm not saying it's not treated well, I'm just saying how it's treated, and then compare that to the example of the Folly website and see how they handle things. One point that, again, it's sort of what Glenda was making, that there are roughly 1,500 short-term rental licenses on Isle of Palms. 1,474 to be exact. I don't know where, other than if they're renting if they have a short-term license through an Island Realty or Beachside Vacations or something of that sort, I don't see where they're being represented. None of what I'm saying is a criticism of CVB. I got to tell you, they've done an extraordinary job. The numbers speak for themselves. You can't argue with that. But my way of thinking, there's a lot of money there. And the question is, to me, is whether putting all that money in one bucket is the way to go. To put it in, to give you a perspective of Folly Beach's example, of Folly Beach, their fiscal 2022 budget for tourism promotion is $360,000. For the $360,000, they have their advertising agency retainer. They have CVB membership, which is $25,000 for 2022, as compared to $733,000 that we just paid. CVB, they also, the Folly Tourism and Promotion Committee also does direct advertising through CVB. The 360 includes that. It includes website maintenance. It includes magazine print advertising, and it includes TV advertising in selected markets, including Atlanta, Charlotte, Raleigh, Greenville, Columbus, and Knoxville. And it's got a little bit of a contingency in it as well. So understanding that, you can, I guess I would say that we're generating twice as much money as they're spending. So really what I want to end with is more of a challenge to the committee members. I want, like, as I mentioned, I want you to take some time over the next month and do your own research. If you have questions, I'm certainly able to handle or address those questions. One of the things that I want people to consider is Isle of Palms is sole sourced on tourism promotion to the tune of over $700,000. If I don't think, I was in private business, but I don't think even in a public business, you would spend $700,000 without a competitive bid. You wouldn't buy a fire truck without getting at least 2 bids. You wouldn't renovate a city building without getting multiple bids. We're spending $750,000 or close to it a year on a sole source situation. I think it's fair, and I think Dan's presence here is really helpful. It's unequivocal that Wild Dunes is responsible for a big portion of the accommodations tax revenue. Don't know what the number is. I'd like to know, but I don't. But you cannot overlook that. And I think CVB does a tremendous job supporting Wild Dunes. And particularly as Helen mentions about the group sales, the off-season sales, those are critically important. However, there's another 1,500 people that are not represented, 1,500 short-term licensees that are not represented. And I really don't think a lot of the other businesses in the city that can generate tax revenue, such as restaurants, are represented either. While I've used Folly as a benchmark and an example of what could be done, Folly Beach does not have a Wild Dunes. Don't lose sight of that. That I think that's a key component, and maybe I'm giving Dan and Helen some ammunition for their case, but the fact remains, don't lose sight of that. That's a big difference between the two communities, and that should be factored into your decision making or your research. I'm not saying this is an all or nothing thing. I don't think it is an all or nothing thing, but I think strong consideration should be considered for having two entities. And at that point in time, if that were to happen, that committee in the city council in the Ways and Means can decide how they want to divide the monies up. And that could be an annual event, meaning if the city created its own DMO and the metrics didn't justify continuing that, well, then that decision is no more than a year old and will be reviewed within the next 12 months. So if CVB is going to say, hey, look what we're doing, we deserve more money, well, then that's the case they should make, and they should get more money. That's what competition is about. That's what getting away from sole sourcing is about. And that makes everybody, not that they're dishonest, but it makes everybody honest with how they're spending taxpayer money. Because you also can't lose sight of the fact that this is Isle of Palm's taxpayer money. And I think part of our job, if not a majority of our job, is making sure that our recommendations are in the best interest of taxpayers' money. So I kind of rambled here a bit, but I copied everybody on a letter that Dan sent. Dan sent me a letter earlier this week that was, well, last week, I'm sorry, that was helpful. I don't know if everyone saw that. If you didn't see it, I'll get you a copy. Advocating for CVB, and I think he did a good job with that. And really, I would just end my discussion with saying I encourage you to do as much research as you can over the next month, and I would entertain a motion one way or the other, however the committee wants to go, with having a vote to present a recommendation to City Council for either staying the course or complete consideration for a establishment of a nonprofit DMO.
You don't need that. Do you need that today?
No,
Okay.
no, that's the whole point. I want people to spend time and do their research and work and come back prepared so that we can then have a constructive discussion and have a vote. Any questions?
May I add to the discussion?
Sure.
I think a critical factor that we need is to have figures and facts of how much each entity on the island is bringing in an ATAX revenue, so we can generate perhaps a percentage that we should allocate in different ways, or so we can make that recommendation. We've been asking for these figures for a while. I know
I'll
this.
let Desiree answer that.
I
because
know there's some complexities to getting that, but I know those figures are collected and they are out there.
They are provided to the city. However, the state law prohibits the city from sharing publicly of revenue numbers, gross receipts. And if that's just information that's protected, while dues can voluntarily share that information, which I believe they did for this presentation, but we are limited in what information can be provided through FOIA.
Well,
let me just say, I think going down that path, Glenda, is getting the horse in front of the cart. That is something that, I mean, in your decision, you're not deciding how the pie is divided up. The decision that you're making is the merits of the pie. And the decision on how the money is divided up is downstream with this newly formed committee, if it goes that way, with Ways and Means Committee and with the City Council. So I don't think, while it'd be nice to know, so maybe you're strong in your convictions about what you decide, it's not something that we need at the moment.
I do disagree, but
Well,
I do understand what you're saying. It would help me make a decision if I had some idea to base it on of really, how many people are underrepresented and would this really help?
Well, there are figures that exist, and I can share them with you on how many licenses exist, how many are inside Wild Dunes, how many are outside of Wild Dunes. All of that information is available from the city.
Okay,
And
well,
I have it as
anything we
well.
can get like that can quantify really would help me understand
Yeah,
that.
I think that is more helpful than at this point than the numbers, meaning the dollars.
Any kind of facts and figures would help.
Any other questions?
Are you done,
Mhm.
Rusty? David? Okay. Here's some thoughts that I had.
Mr. Treslow,
I'm Matt.
if you don't mind speaking directly into the mic,
I
thank you.
thought it was, but let's try it now. Is this better? All right. I'm the at-large member or representative on the ATAX committee, so I've come from a little bit different perspective than perhaps some of the others. I understand our job is not to select a DMO. I get it. I'm very appreciative of what y'all have done. Dan, thank you for all the contribution you made to the island. When I got married, there was no Wild Dunes. There was the Sand Dollar campground was there and some goats, and it was dirt road on the front beach. I'm not saying that we should change, but I don't have enough documentation to know what to do. I've got as many questions as I've got answers at this point in time. Of course, Dan's organization could waive any statutory provision that said that the figures couldn't be provided. I say the statute somewhat differently than you did. We're an advisory committee. We're, in military terms, we'd be sort of like doing recon or a forward observer on the battlefield. Wouldn't be shared with others. And of course, hotels or Dan's various businesses could be grouped in, so his privacy could be maintained. And I'm very sensitive to that, and I'm sensitive in the same way that we ought to be mindful of the privacy of our valued DMO. So I'm not saying we should change, but I'm saying as the at-large representative, we ought to consider our options. I bet Helen would say the same thing, because she wants all the facts and figures out so that we could make the best decision. She wants that for us, I'm sure, and we want her to have a fair opportunity to make a presentation. So it may be, as Ray said, that we stay the course, may go somewhere else, or we may have a compromise. I don't know, but I sure would like to have some figures, and I would like to know how much, I would like to know how much, for example, not specifically through, unless Dan can give it to us if he wants. I'd like to know how much money, who generates what. We've got 1,500 people with short-term licenses. They've got almost all of Palm Boulevard is rented out. I'd like for everybody to have a seat at the table and have some say so, and then figure it out. But right now, I don't have enough. But I'm saying we ought to look at it. Competition's good. May the best man win, but we got to have all the facts and figures out there. I would like to know from somebody at some point in time what and Helen may have this better than anybody else was and for us to consider is what is the downside if we made a change, or we compromised, or we tried to accommodate more people. What's the downside? Is that good? Is it bad? When you try to please everybody, you end up not pleasing anybody. So I'm not sure how that factors in, but we've got to consider what I think in terms of KPIs. I don't know whether you all are familiar with that, but the key performance indicators, I know Helen is. One of the most important one is the satisfaction of your customer. I was pleased to hear you say we're your customer. What are the KPIs? How does the island feel about it? How are the residents being served? How are the businesses being served? Dan, with the hotel, I mean, y'all are a big part of this island. I don't know how big compared to others, but you're a big part of it, and you do a lot of respect and consideration for all you're doing. The residents, how do they weigh in? How does I was looking at some old minutes from I want to say it was September 2. I can't remember right now, but I think it was September 2015 when Rusty Williamson, who I think was on the ATAX committee at the time, was saying, some of this ATAX, after our residents, most valuable thing we have is our beach. And he would as our cultural representative thought, hey, some of this money maybe ought to be spent on protecting our beach. I don't have figures about what's being done. I've heard some good things from Helen, but I don't know how that fleshes out. I heard David in the same meeting calling for the same thing I'm saying today, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but he said he wanted some facts and figures, and he invited Mr. Lawson, Perrin Lawson, to come to provide us with some figures. I thought we were getting the results, whereas I would like to, at least on one level, know if we give Charleston Visitors Bureau $100, how much of that is being spent on the Isle of Palms versus going to, and I like North Charleston, but you could pick anywhere, Folly Beach, North Charleston, Charleston. I'd like some assurances that our money is being spent on the Isle of Palms. I did note in another set of minutes that our former city administrator was of the opinion and belief that our ATAX money, if it's $700,000, ought to be spent on the Isle of Palms to promote the Isle of Palms and not used elsewhere. Now, the difficulty is the funds are commingled not only with other municipalities, but they're commingled with stakeholders, other businesses, and that's the statutory scheme we've been dealt. So I know it's problematic, but for me, being kind of at the end of the day, I'd like to think that I'm fact driven. I'd like to know how the money is actually being spent. I think it was Helen who was saying, I put off a big smiley face, that for helping with transportation people coming here, that was great because it reduced some of the traffic demand for people that come to Dan's resort. So I'm rambling some too,
Tight on time.
but I think I'm out of time.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything else to bring up for discussion? Okay. That'll end the old business section of the agenda. Item 5 is new business. I'm not aware of any new business.
No, the only item on the agenda is you've already taken action on with the overages, so
Okay.
there's nothing else listed.
Okay, so next item is the date of the next meeting. It's scheduled for September 8th, 11 a.m. in the council chambers here. And I encourage everybody to be here. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.